and welcome to In the Room, a unique interview series from Thesby.com, which explores the craft and the journey of artists from diverse BAME and LGBTQ+ communities. We're so excited to be joined today by the cast and creative team of The Colour Purple at Home, which is produced by the Curve Theatre in Leicester and the Birmingham Hippodrome. Today we will be joined by director Tanuke Craig, as well as stars of the show, Tashan Williams, Aka Mitchell, and Danielle Fiamania. Do you want to say welcome, guys?
Hi.
Hello.
All right.
Hello.
How are you? I mean, I was just saying you were filming day 2. Is it today?
Yeah, this is day 2. Sorry, Danielle, I cut you off. This is day 2. We're not filming today proper. We've got a really lovely setup here where the camera guys are coming in kind of one by one over the next couple of days. So by Thursday we'll have full camera crew, and we've got a couple of screens set up, a couple of monitors, but filming proper will start kind of tomorrow afternoon. But I've been sort of in the space working with the choreographer for most of today and yesterday, but the company have mostly been doing music until this afternoon. So yeah, we're like day 2. We're sort of ready to kind of get cracking proper now. It feels like as ready as you'll ever be.
I know that it's so exciting, and we're so thankful that you've been able to join us in the middle of your journey. Before the Colour Purple at Home, it was the amazing production in 2019. It would be wonderful to hear about your journey. So how were you first introduced to the production, and have you had a relationship with the Colour Purple?
I'll start by saying that I used to sing I'm Here at college. It was given to me to work on for a song presentation. So I had that song in my repertoire, and I was working on it in college. And this was before I knew what drama school was. And then when I found out about what drama school was, then I started auditioning for drama school. I used that song as my audition song. So I kind of have a connection to that song big time. But the whole piece as a whole, with the script and the story and everything, I'd never seen it. So getting into the room in 2019, going through it with everybody, with all the characters, and knowing what goes on in Steve's world was a completely new experience.
That's so incredible. I think what's quite remarkable about the production are the different rave reviews. There was a lot of acclaim because the production was so unique. Obviously, there's been so many recent productions and quite iconic productions of the Colour Purple. How did you find your own voice and make this a production that was quite unique?
I think for me, I mean, it'll be different for the performers, I think, but for me, I think in some ways I was quite fortunate. I mean, this isn't something I'm proud of, but I think because I didn't know that much musical theatre or know it that well, and I'd come from like almost entirely a theatre background, and normally quite an untraditional theatre background, like most of the work I'd done had been quite experimental, or like formally a little bit like, certainly not naturalism. I'd done very little in the way of naturalism. So my sort of sense, my kind of theatre sensibility was always to make something quite expressionistic in one way or another. Now you can't do that completely with a musical if the text doesn't call for it, because you don't want to like completely overhaul what the text is asking you to do, because I think that way madness lies. But I suppose I had a sort of my taste and sensibility was already to make something a little bit more declared, I think. And I was lucky in some ways that I hadn't seen all the other productions. So I sort of didn't really have anything else in my head other than kind of the thing I like to do anyway, or like the thing I sort of could just make with Alex, who designed it. We could sort of just make the thing that felt like our emotional response to the text. Kind of separately from a MT tradition. And then what's been really nice coming back to it this time, now that I have a little bit more experience in that world, is being able to kind of marry like a little bit of actual knowledge with like a vague hunch that I had before, I think is what we were mostly going on the first time round. But I also think that like my relationship with the with the story had come primarily from knowing the book really well. I didn't know the film that well, but I knew the book really well. So a lot of the kind of like the more kind of literary and kind of poetic elements of that text were sort of in my head, maybe more than the cinematic elements. And I suppose that probably ended up in the show in one way or another. I couldn't tell you where, but I'm sure it's in there.
Wonderful. So I suppose with the cast, similar to what Tanuki was saying, did you look at other versions of the characters? Was it a case of kind of listening to a lot of the music to find your Nettie or your Mister, or was it a case of finding the inspiration from the text itself?
I think like it's a story that, you know, as a young Black woman, I was familiar with because my mum was so familiar with it, and that kind of like sunk into me. And then I was similar to Tashan, like I sang it at drama school and things like that. And obviously I'd never seen any other production, but I was very, you know, fond of the music and everything. And I think what's amazing about the musical is it's so universal, but equally like everyone connects to it on such a personal, spiritual, individual level that I feel like for us in the room anyway, it just always felt like it doesn't matter who it was, everyone was trying to find their truth in it. So it just came, it's quite an organic thing, you know, and it's always changing, but you know, you respect all the other productions and you love it, and I go wild. I go wild for the musical anyway, and the book and everything, and the movie, and it's just all inspiration. But I think they all come from their own truths at the time. Like now, it has a whole new meaning to me, and it's ever evolving because of you know the time we're in. So yeah.
I think there's such prevalent themes of hope, of resilience that can ring true at this time when we are sort of in lockdown and things like that. And I know you were saying it was quite an emotional day, singing through all of the material. How, as an artist, how do you create that space between the character you're playing or the role you have on the production and then actually yourself?
I would say the Color Purple was one of my dad's absolute favorite films and one of my mom's favorite books. And one of the highlights of my life was working with Whoopi Goldberg and being able to introduce her to my dad. He was so funny because he was just like, Whoopi. And then they're like chatting for ages. And he was like, son, take a picture of me and Whoopi. Come on.
I love it.
And that's like a highlight, just an absolute highlight. I was so happy that he could meet her and whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, I have really great admiration and love for the material. And I'm not afraid of seeing it and seeing what people are doing or whatever. And that's more information, you know, about the world. But it is something that, because it contains so many universal truths about, you know, who we are as humans and our way through, you know, our way through is love. And that is basically what the through line of the story is. And we bring, all of us bring the last year, the difficulties, the protests, you know, there's that idea of something hitting different, you know, there's a lot of lines that hit different now, you know, and I think that's why we actually in our run through, well, not run through, but our read through, you know, it was interesting to hear those words again in this space and this time, and they hit us hard, you know, and it's such a gift to be able to share in this time this story. So there's just loads to there's loads there.
Yeah, I suppose it last year has been quite a difficult year, as you said. There's been protests. We've seen, you know, in the wake of the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, how do you feel it's important to see Black faces and to feel represented on screen or on stage? Has revisiting The Color Purple, have you found that there's a different perspective to it now?
I think for me, I think one of the things that I'm really thankful of in this production is that it doesn't at all shy away from Black trauma, but also it doesn't shy away from Black joy. I think it's really important that you have, because I suppose that often when we talk about Black art, we're talking about Black struggle, which we need to talk about. We need to talk about it for ourselves because we need the catharsis and the space to do it. And also it needs to be seen and heard by other Black people and by people who aren't Black to get it. I think what this show does so well, though, is it in addition to that gives you it gives you spirit, and it gives you joy, and it gives you abundance. And seeing like Black abundance, I think, is really important, really humanizing, really cathartic. I think for me that this show allows us to get like the full scope of what it is to be a human. And I suppose that part of the thing that I was really struck by this year, June especially, was this notion that like once again we were having to sort of like fight for people to believe that we were people somehow on some level. And that's so brutal. It's a brutal thing to like even have to say about myself, that I have to like reassert my humanity every 5 minutes. But on a show like this, where the whole thing, the theme, it's like what it is to be a person, what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman. I don't even know what I'm saying. I suppose allowing there to be an entire group of Black people who are allowed to reflect the entire spectrum of what it is to exist in this world as a Black person, as a human, as a woman, as a queer person, and have all those things exist on this little stage that we have, feels like an important thing to have to sit with. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, that actually like it feels like a necessary thing to have to sit amongst, or to watch, or to witness it. That's the word I'm looking for. We've got to bear witness to all those aspects. And I think the show allows us to do that really well. I hope so anyway. I feel like that one. I mean, it's so nice being the director on a show because you get to watch it all the time. And I always feel like I'm so lucky to bear witness to that. So I hope other people feel like that too.
That's powerful. I think there are definite moments of affirmation and of just kind of a declaration of that in the musical. I know Tashan, you were saying about I'm Here was a strong part of your rep. That song is alluded to as one of the most contemporary and most acclaimed 11 o'clock numbers. How does it feel for you to be singing that song, and what is it about the song which is so transformative?
Well, I think by the time you watch her story from start to finish, by the time it gets down here, you just kind of feel, as somebody watching, I think that, oh, finally, like she's earned this kind of thing. Like you just witnessed her go through so much, like trials and tribulations, and it's like Akko said, it's such a universal thing for individual people to go through, that journey to self-love and self-confidence. You know, not everyone has gone through all the stuff that Celia's gone through, but the journey to love and self-confidence and stuff, that is something that everybody goes through in life at one point and can connect with. So it really is, it's really personal. It's really personal, and I feel it's personal to everybody when I sing it. I feel it's personal to everybody listening.
Wow, that is amazing to see that there's such a personal connection to the material. I suppose that the piece existed in a format where you were creating content for the stage, and now it's obviously screen as well. So, and obviously it's a concert version as well. So I wonder, do you feel there's been things that's been lost, or do you feel that there have been things that you've gained in this translation from one form to another?
I think the guys will have more to say about this because it'll affect how they perform. But in terms of me as an outside eye, I think one of the things that I'm really trying to do is to create a world in which what we're trying to create on screen, is the feeling of what it is like to watch it on stage. Do you know what I mean? That it's not an instance where we've got to make the cut, we've got to make a movie, you know. Because I think because I think if you try and make a movie out of a play, you end up just with quite a bad movie. Like, you don't really get either thing.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to create is something that doesn't necessarily look like what it would look like if you're in the theatre. It's not like you just have one camera there and sit it there for the entire thing, but it should feel like what it feels like to sit amongst performers, or to sit that close, or to be that intimate with the performance. That feels important. So actually a lot of my work from the sidelines of all these monitors is just going to be like, does that give me the feeling of being at a live performance? You know, like that's ultimately what we're trying to create, is a piece of, try and faithfully take a piece of theatre and present it on screen, is more important than trying to make a film out of the work that we're making. Because also I think it's a really theatrical piece. It's a play. It's for theatre. It's not. If we wanted it to look like a film, we would have got the whole set in. But you know what I mean? It's about having a more declared space, and it's in the round now, and we've got a few elements of the design that actually these guys don't even know about, but they'll find out tomorrow, that make it a little bit more declared, a little bit more like we're allowed to witness it as a piece of theatre. That feels important to me, that we're not trying to like delete or dilute the theatricality of it, because it's a play.
Yeah.
It should be a play. But it'd be different for these guys who've got to do it. So
I feel like nothing brings me more joy is in this process. It was the same last time, but in this process, it's like, I mean, obviously we're socially distanced. We're working with a lot of, you know, obstacles, and just seeing everyone work through and around that is like, it's just a masterclass. Even today, like, seeing people just on stage, like, you know what, I can't do this, I can't even touch you, but we can still get to that level of, you know, reach that emotion, that height of emotion. It's really exciting. And yeah, there are obstacles, but I think Nikolai Foster said it so well. He was just like, we're not trying to be perfect, but we're really trying to see how we exist in this space and time now, you know, with all these things going around, and how like theatre and art and like Ako said, love, what we do, you know, how it prevails, and it will prevail always. Yeah.
Wow. Wonderful words. I'm so excited to see this translation. It's going to be a new form, a new piece of theatre, you know, and a visual and visceral experience. I suppose when for maybe the cast, is there a particular song? Is there a moment that might challenge you, or a moment where you feel you are brought to a high level as an artist?
Well, I would just say, for me, you know, revisiting material like there's Mr. has a Nightmare, you know, and Tinu said something interesting about me having distance from my character, and I actually think I'm much closer to that character now. Not in terms of bullying and all of that stuff, but just this person is driven by rage, and I think this last year, I really got to understand just being totally flabbergasted by what was happening to people, by a man being choked to death, you know, and so that connecting with that it doesn't justify actions, but I can definitely connect with that rage that triggers being abusive to other people, and again, gratefully, person seems to understand that actually loving people is a lot more powerful, you know. So I feel extremely connected to it.
Amazing. And to Shan, I know we've spoken a lot about I'm Here, but are there any other favourite moments or moments where you're just in absolute ecstasy or
There's loads. There's loads. So I'd say there's this really understated one called Dear God, Lily of the Field. And this is when, without giving too much away, I lose my sister. And for me, it's like when I first start to really lose my faith. And, you know, you see her talk about God a lot, especially in the first half. the show. And, the whole community is really really church driven, about religion and everything. And that song for me, it's just that betrayal. It's a real betrayal for me, and I feel like I'm really questioning God, and I get really angry, and that's the beginning of me starting to lose my faith.
Wow.
So yeah, that one is, and another one is Celie's Pants, because at this point she's like at the top of her game at this point. She's doing things for herself, like she's, again, I don't want to give too much away, but she's just happy. You see her happy, and you see her supported by these sisters around her that are willing her to do well. And it's just lovely, and I love being at that part in Celie's journey.
Tashan, you were saying that there were lots of lovely moments where all of the cast are together, and I know Danielle, you were saying there's lots of different obstacles where we're in a COVID environment now. I suppose a question for you, Tinuke, what is the process of building this strong ensemble again? Is there WhatsApp groups? Are there lots of different conversations? What is your process to building a company in this environment?
I mean, it's hard to say, because I think that the Colour Purple Company are particularly extraordinary in terms of just how lovely they are, how lovely you all are. I think that's just part. I wish I could be like, oh, I worked very hard as a director to, but actually, like the main thing is that they were all just really lovely to begin with. I think, although actually, I think one thing that I did do on this show that I hadn't ever done before or since, with the rigor that I did on this show, just because I'd never done a musical before and I didn't know anyone. Like, normally when I'm casting, I sort of know of people when they're coming in, but I literally just never heard of or met anybody. Is that I made so many phone calls. Like, I just called up every director everyone ever worked with to be like, what are they like? Are they nice? And so I basically I put a lot of effort into making sure that we had a company of people who were lovely, I think, which I think has really paid off. So I'm really glad about that as a creative move on my part, but also how nice to meet wonderful people. But I also think beyond that, because I can't really take credit for the fact that these are good people, I think the material is also particularly attractive to those who have open hearts and who are able to kind of grapple with big swathes of emotion or tension or pain or heartache. And so the material actually has managed to hold us in a space where everybody kind of, in order to do a successful production, everybody has to kind of be really honest about how they are and how they're feeling all the time, which I think is, and this is, and like I said, and a few people have said, Danielle said, this is a piece that's very important to us, but also really important to our parents. Really, there's something about the lineage of this piece that means in order to do it well, in order to do it successfully, you've sort of got to be willing to love. That's the wankiest thing I've said in ages, but I think it's true. And I think what that's meant is that we've ended up with a cast who really love each other and a crew who really love each other, I hope, anyway. But also, yeah, there's a WhatsApp group that's been going for 2 years and it's still popping. So that's also true.
Every day.
I love it.
That's how hard we go.
Love it. I think that love just translates on stage. I think people are going to be so excited about this show. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us. It's been an absolute joy finding out some treasures, some unique things about the production. I just want to say a big thank you for joining us.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. The Colour Purple at Home is available to stream via curveonline.com from the 16th of Feb to Sunday, the 7th of March. Thank you for joining us once again. Thank you so much to the cast and creative team of The Colour Purple at Home, and we look forward to seeing you next time in the room.